Okay, welcome back to the best MMA prediction channel on YouTube. We are just at the conclusion of UFC Fight Night Yan versus Goblin, and to be honest, I'm pretty confused right about now, conflicted one might say, particularly after the prelims. I'm gonna make this a quick one as I'm on the road. As always, I'll start with the prelim video first and then move straight on to the main card. As always, like and subscribe if you are new here. Many thanks as always to those that have stuck around. You have no idea how grateful I am for that. Okay, so this was a replacement fight with Gooden stepping in for Nurmagomedov at the last minute. Gooden obviously failed to make weight for this one, hardly a surprise. He was probably halfway through a six-pack of malt liquor and crying into his pink slip from the UFC when he got the call. Should have been made a catchweight fight, but Harris took it anyway. Absolute savage. I picked him and he got the job done. Kind of. This one doesn't really deserve much of a breakdown. Gooden spent most of the fight trying to go for a KO and couldn't find it. Harris traded in the first round and just looked silly in there. Then decided to go to a grappling game plan and pretty much dominated the rest of the fight, controlling Gooden on the ground. Quite a portion of it was spent teabagging him, to be honest. I don't know how else to call it. Gooden must have wished he hadn't picked up the phone. Alright, so that took me to 1-0 to start things off. Alright, so this was a flyweight fight, and I really enjoyed this one. Nam looked massive in there. Silva hit a sick little spinning back fist early on that landed right on the button. And he seemed to have the speed advantage despite looking like a scared child in there. I expected Silva to avoid the stand-up, but he didn't. He did attempt one or two takedowns, but was thrown off pretty easily. And I admit this gave me a little bit of concern, as obviously I picked him. Nam was looking for the big shot, while Silva just pieced away with slick, fast jabs. I had Silva right up until the end of the round. I thought Nam ended with a nice flurry, but it was a fairly hard round to call. I think Silva edged it. Second round though, Jesus Christ. Both started feeling each other out, and out of nowhere, Silva hit a sweep kick right up the middle that caught Nam right on the chin, and he just fell hard. Nam then made the mistake of trying to get up too quickly, and Silva just leapt on the back and choked him unconscious. Respect to Nam for not tapping. He decided to go for a nap instead. A very impressive performance, and we have a new contender in the rankings. 2-0, impressive win, Silva by sub. Alright, the next fight some women fought. I picked the dumpy, less attractive one. I got this horribly wrong. Most of the first round was spent fainting from a mile down the road. The dumpy one then grabbed a clinch and let herself get kneed, and essentially did fuck all. They went back to fainting, clinched again, exchanged a few knees. The slightly more attractive one got the first round by having a busy flurry at the end. I was naturally concerned at this point. I'm not sure what Dumpy's plan was in this one, to be honest. I think I remember her having one jab of consequence in a round so horrid, I felt with a minute left that she might have actually won that round. But the story of the fight was really that Dumpy JJ struggled when she went in for the clinch when going for takedowns, which was where she clearly thought she could win the fight, and she was too dense to try another strategy. She wasn't good enough on the feet. How did anyone lose to this woman? The round was confirmed for Lipski when she hit a nice knee up the middle. Dumpy needed a finish in the third, and I just knew it wasn't coming. Lipski, to her credit, upped the volume in the third, and she spent more of the round just piecing her up. JJ Aldridge is awful. So is Lipski, but she's just slightly less awful. JJ should go back to the bakery. This took me to 2-1, and I'll never pick her again. Nice win for Lipski. A clear 3-round unanimous decision. I need to stop picking female fights. Okay, after the last fight, I really needed this. No fucking about. I called this pretty well from start to finish. Fight started out with Henry getting leg kicked really hard, which sent him down. But he immediately bounced up and started teeping the body, and you could see that Tony was not enjoying that. I did say that Henry would be able to stuff the takedowns, and that seemed to be the case early. Pace was frenetic. Henry hit so many shots to the midsection in the first round, and that's always smart investment to me. I'm always talking about it. Henry then stood back and started popping fists at range, changed up the game plan a bit, and this caused Gravely to waste a little energy at the end, trying to take the back and get Henry down, which clearly wasn't enough to win the round back and caused Gravely to gas a little bit. 1-0 to Henry, quite clear. Second round, Henry started going hard to the body again, and I called this strategy before the fight. Henry started walking him down like he had no respect for him, and Gravely seemed to be fading hard. It's why I talk about body investment so much, it's so underrated. Once Henry had him softened, he started going upstairs more. Gravely did have some minimal success taking Henry down and finding the back briefly, but Henry stayed patient, worked his way up, and went right back to the body. Henry did hit a flurry of nasty elbows from an elevated position at the end of the round to fully secure a dominant round, and Gravely wasted a lot of energy again trying to go for a pointless takedown. 2-0, very clear to me. Now, at the beginning of the third, Tony hit a nice shot as they both came rushing in, and you could see Henry immediately thought, fuck this, and just booted him right in the body. Third round was fought in a phone booth throughout, back and forth. Henry almost threw this fight away in the third, going for a silly knee bar. Lost him a close round. First was close, so I didn't feel 100% confident. For me, this was 2-1 Henry, but that third left it very much, you could see a robbery potentially happening. Now, this did end in, I've got it written here as a UD for Henry, but it was actually a split win, which I didn't agree with that. I thought it was very clear. Yeah, this took me to 3-1, though, and yeah, Henry kind of put himself in a position to make it possible to get a robbery, so that's firmly on him. Alright, next fight, and I got this horribly wrong. And I was confident in it too, all up until we got to the weigh-ins, and Josh Fremd looked absolutely massive in comparison. It says they have a 1-inch height disparity, and that Dumas carried the reach advantage in there. Fremd looked like a giant standing next to him, and yeah, what essentially surprised me was Fremd looked much better on the feet. He chopped away at the legs, which Dumas clearly didn't like to start the round out. Then Fremd took him down, if I remember, and what really surprised me was Dumas had nothing on the ground. He literally lay there in guard, made no attempt to get back up, and, well, not for the first part of the round anyway, and Fremd really dominated him down there, just beat him up. Dumas did manage to get up towards the end of the round, but it had very little consequence and probably just served to gas him out. He probably just should have laid there. Now, his corner did offer him some urgent words of advice, and it did seem to have some effect for a very short time. Dumas kind of came out with a little bit of urgency and did hit Fremd with a few shots, but then Fremd hit a really amazing hip toss the impact of it was really hard. You felt the octagon shake, and it was pretty much academic from there. He got top control. There was a brief moment when Dumas managed to reverse position and get on top, but you could see he was overly excited, going for a choke, and just fell right off the top. And then Fremd just locked up a choke, and Dumas instantly tapped. It was an apt ending for Dumas, to be fair. You got choked in the fight, and you choked on the big stage. He looked like a completely different fighter than the man I saw in the regionals, and I think that's where he needs to go to get more experience. Very good win for Fremd. Took me to 3-2, not the best start, but yeah. Alright, now, wow, this fight was crazy, and I felt it justified why it deserved to be on the main card. Alright, this might be one of the craziest finishes in UFC history, recency bias aside. Now, the first and second round kind of played out the same way. Davey was trying wild, varied strikes and didn't really have a lot of success, but was clearly trying to find a big shot to catch Assunsao off guard and finish the fight. Assunsao basically won the first two by perfectly timing moments when Grant went for big shots, and he had enough control time to win those rounds. The first round was definitely closer. I can see why some people might give it to Grant, but you're probably being too generous. I felt like going into the third, though, he really needed a TKO, and I couldn't really see it coming. But this is the thing about Grant. He's not the kind of guy to just, delude himself into thinking he might have won a round. Nah, he clearly went in there like he was 2 rounds down, and this, wow, what a hell of a third round this was. Now, at the beginning of the round, Davey caught Assunsao with a really nice, like, kind of slip right hand that dropped Assunsao, and he was clearly rattled, but he had enough about him to know where he was, and he managed to grab the leg and take him down, and I thought, right, that's over then. But Davey didn't give up. He got up, fought like a warrior, took it back to the feet, and bang, caught Assunsao again. But again, Assunsao managed to have enough about him, grab the leg again. Now this time, as he went to grab Davey and take him down, Davey grabbed the cage, and instantly Mark Smith had a point, took a point from him. Now I don't necessarily have a problem with this in a vacuum. The issue was that Mark Smith would go on to ref 2 more fights later on down the cards, and he took the opposite stance to what he did to Grant. Now maybe the way he very quickly just docked a point without thinking about it affected how he maybe he was told, hey, you overreacted there, and maybe this affected his performance later on down the card. I don't know, but this was very egregious to me, and I felt a very harsh point deduction for what was basically a first infraction. Ironically though, it led to the finishing sequence that ended the fight, because instead of putting them back into position, he chose to dock a point and set them both standing again. That's when Davey again came in with a really nice cracking right. Assunsao went down again, and this time Davey locked in a reverse triangle, which you don't see often, squeezed the life out of him, and eventually Assunsao went to sleep. He retired in the cage at the end after losing by sub, which might not be the most dignified way to go, but he didn't really lose stock. He was going to retire anyway, regardless of whether he won or lost. So in a way, for the division, it's the best thing. Assunsao was leaving anyway, and Grant at 37 has very few chances left. He's probably never going to fight for a title, but doesn't really matter. At least he's around as a good contender to pair up with somebody, so it was probably best for everyone. Back up to 4-2, really happy. Alright, now the last fight on the card was, on the prelims rather, was a fight between Carl Williams and Lucas Brysky. Now, I didn't pick anyone on this one, because in the endless amount of film that I watched on both men, I couldn't find a clear winner. So for the first time on this channel, I decided not to pick either of them. I just didn't want to risk it, and I felt vindicated in doing so despite how the fight went. Now, this ended up being a much better fight than I was expecting it to be. It's kind of weird when you get 2 guys that are this terrible. In a way, it can make it more exciting because there's that unpredictability factor, and I certainly felt that throughout this fight. The story of the fight really was that Carl Williams, he was able to take Brysky down at key moments in the fight, and even though he didn't really manage to dominate much when he did get him down, he got them at the right time, and I think that made all the difference. Brysky did have his moments, he looked alright in there. I would also like to point out something I forgot to mention. Brysky got popped for PEDs when he came into the UFC, and if you see this guy fighting in Poland, he was absolutely shredded. He's basically an advert for why you should do PEDs. He looked incredible. In this fight, he looked like a guy that ate that guy. He looked like a fat fucking mess. And while he did have his moments in this fight, yeah, it was just, it was fun in a way to watch because they were both so terrible and they both went for it, but it wasn't a great fight. The sad thing is we will see both of them again. Williams got the win. So glad that I didn't pick anyone in this fight. Alright, so that brings us to the end of the prelims. I'll be back again soon to deliver the main card. I'll see you guys in a bit.